Good morning, SmartCon.
Woo!
Good morning, SmartCon.
Morning.
And hi, everyone who's watching us on the live stream. So I have a special guest, as you can see, Chainlink co-founder Steve.
Thanks, Chirag. Great to be here.
So Steve, you and I have had the pleasure of playing many ping pong games, many intense battles, and we have discussed this topic a lot during our games about how do you think about, tough technology problems, innovation, unlocking the next wave, etc. And I'm so glad we're able to do this here officially today.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. So in the past 1 year, we have launched a lot of new products, functions, CCIP, lots of new announcements going out today. What were some of the biggest problems the team had to solve? If you could recap that for us.
Yeah. Two big problems that I think we maybe not solve, but we continue to chip away at. Security, always on my mind, and then platform. So for security, I think the most exciting breakthrough this year has been we introduced a second client. So for people that don't know, a client is sort of a software implementation of a protocol, something that runs the protocol. So our primary client's written in Go. We've been developing it for 6 years. It runs all the different services, and we've been focused on making that as secure and reliable as possible. And so it's difficult, though, to build a second client because we're handling many different services, and we have to do that across many different chains. And especially for chains, they are each moving targets. They are each. None of them have totally stabilized yet, and so they're changing at different speeds. It's just a lot to keep up with. So we have sort of just chosen to focus on keeping the one implementation running as smoothly as possible. But when we decided to tackle CCIP and build a bridge, bridges are just so attack prone, and it's such a difficult thing to secure. So we decided to throw everything we've got at it, and we thought this is a good time to break out and actually build a second client. So for the use case specific purpose of a bridge, we built a second client, built it in Rust. It is built by a completely different team, run by a different set of node operators. They don't actually have access to move any of the funds. And so it's really exciting to have a second client and have that. This is at least our breakout into doing that. As some other chains like Ethereum already do it, as many people know. So that's really exciting. And then excited to continue making progress on security. The other thing, I think the platform is really what I'm excited about. This is just our push to make more, it very easy and accessible for anybody to deploy their own Oracle networks permissionlessly with whatever logic they would like. So I think the big move there is we released Chainlink functions, which lets anything you can put in a JavaScript function, you can pretty much run as a custom Oracle logic. And I think that's going to be huge for unlocking tons of new possibilities for different Chainlink applications.
Awesome, yeah. And when I kind of internalize this, I think this is so great because when you zoom out, you first spoke about the second client security model, risk management network, and CCIP. That really allows a lot of developers to go deep in the stack, to build a lot of advanced use cases with cross-chain in a really secure way. And then with functions, what you're doing is you are kind of enabling the next wave of developers, new developers, to come and start building their first smart contract, connecting real-world APIs and applications, etc. So that makes a lot of sense and gets me really excited. Kind of building on top of that, what would you say are the technology blockers for this next wave of developers who are looking to start building smart contracts and blockchains?
Yeah, the ones, I guess the things that have, the exciting kind of breakthroughs, the things that have been unblocked recently, that I think the one that's getting talked about a lot that I think is going to make a really huge difference, can't be understated, would be L2s or layer 2s. This is a scaling technology for blockchains. And we've had a couple for the last year or so, but I think very recently we've started to see a huge unlock where there's tons and tons of new L2s coming out, optimistic, zero knowledge, lots of different types of L2s with different sort of features and trade-offs, but I think That's going to be huge. I mean, I think back to sort of DeFi summer 2020, and I still have like battle scars from just the gas prices of that. Things were going through the roof to like hundreds of dollars a transaction, and so I've been sort of living. We have to build our applications to be extremely sensitive to gas, and I think people should still optimize their contracts, but it opens up a lot of new possibilities for developers, because you can now start to have more complex logic, and so I think developers will have sort of more space to build. And then beyond that, I think also for user experience, more block space just means it's going to be cheaper transactions. So for end users, much cheaper, much more accessible, and the transactions are happening a lot faster. So I think that's going to change a lot of the user experience and unlock a lot of things. The downside, I guess, of L2s is that they're each somewhat siloed, and so I think the really big breakthrough, the one I'm pushing, it's not. I think that CCIP is going to be huge, just bridges. There have yet to be really reliable bridges out there in the space, and so I think we're excited to enter that space and provide that for people, because it's been such a fraught area for a long time. And bridges, they're going to enable people. There's these chains that have special properties. Some are better at compute, some are better at storage, some are better at sort of like securing large amounts of value, and they all have these different things that they excel at, and so I think bridges are going to open up this possibility. We've seen dApps that exist on multiple chains, but I don't think we've seen dApps that really take advantage of the properties of each chain, and I think that having a secure bridge network that sort of connects all of those is going to really unlock a lot of new possibilities. And then to project even further out, I think you can kind of imagine bridges. It's still somewhat of a manual process to connect your smart contracts, but I don't think it's too hard to imagine a future where this stuff starts to sort of auto-magically happen, and it kind of happens behind the scenes. Developers don't have to worry about it, and you can start to see ways where you could build an application and the network starts to handle sort of figuring out storage for you, or figuring out, okay, this is where I'm going to move compute to. And it starts to look sort of like a modern operating system, and I think blockchain development can start to sort of feel a lot more like what developers are used to for building on computers, instead of sort of the slow, little bit more tedious process of working on a single chain or across chains right now. So I'm really looking forward to that. Other thing, I think, again, for user experience, account abstraction is going to be really huge. It'll just make it easier for users. They don't have to worry about gas. They don't have to worry about anything else. So I think that's going to be another really big win.
Awesome. Yeah. No, just to add a little bit to that, obviously the abstraction concept that you just discussed reminds me of CCIP abstraction layer, which was a component of the Swift pilot. So just from that perspective, if we can kind of remove the complexity, make it easier for these technologists, these developers who are usually limited on their resources, on the amount of developers they have, making their lives easier to harness the power of the blockchain without really getting into the complexity with an abstraction layer concept. I think that is super powerful. On the other point you touched on was this ability to use the right tool for the right job, which pretty much is how do you leverage that power of the blockchains, L1s and L2s, to build your dApp. And that kind of reminds me of an example back in my past life when I was at AWS. We used to talk about Amazon.com, which is kind of this single pane of glass that a user sees, and then you are very seamlessly browsing the shopping cart or the product catalog. But most users, what they don't understand is on the back end, they're all completely different microservices-based systems. So the shopping cart is a different database, the product catalog is a different database, but it all comes together and gives you that seamless experience. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, very exciting.
And cool. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a fun question.
Okay.
What keeps Steve up late at night?
Yeah, coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. Yeah, like many developers, engineers, I'm a bit of a night owl. But I guess even after I sign off, yeah, I think scaling is probably the biggest category of problem that I worry about. There's so many problems to solve, and then when you throw scaling at it, it just get 10 times worse. So again, to harp on security, I think we have, I described services, chains. We have, I don't know how many different services. We keep launching new services. We keep going to new chains. If you sort of multiply that grid by, services by chains, you can imagine the surface area for how much complexity, because each service combined with each chain has its own little nuances and details that we have to worry about, and so that continues to grow. And then as you sort of add a new dimension of, the team is growing, we're adding more people, and how do we ramp them up so that they can keep the bar as high as we need it to be, and that just adds more and more to the complexity of sort of managing a secure, reliable system. So luckily, as we've been growing, we've been getting more and more great people in the door. They continue to raise the bar, so I think that's been really helpful. We have great security partners that help us out, so I think there's a lot to do there. And then the other one I think that I worry about in terms of scaling is just sort of the next wave of Web3. When people are going to come in, what that use case is going to be that's going to drive them. It's really difficult to predict that. And when it shows up, we need to be there and ready to service whatever those needs are. And I think we have some new competitors showing up who are a little less concerned with security and decentralization, and so maybe they're a little more agile and able to show up and service that. But I don't think it's easier to be agile when you're kind of slapping something together with duct tape and bubble gum. And so I wonder, sometimes I worry, is this going to slow us down in terms of being able to address whatever the new market is? And this is really, I guess, how I get to sleep at the end of the night. This is why I care so much about the platform, is that we don't want to have to be able to predict the next use case. We want people to essentially be able to permissionlessly deploy. We want to just give them the tools and empower them to build whatever use cases they see that they want to build wherever they think there's going to be demand. And so we don't want to be in the business of kind of predicting it, just enabling everyone else. And so I think that's really why I'm excited about the platform for helping us scale all of this.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And your note about the decentralization aspect, keeping in mind the scalability and security, reminds me of talking about Ben Chan's talk, who'll speak more about the Oracle trilemma, as we call it, on how do you ensure you're decentralized, fast, and secure as well.
Yeah, blockchain trilemma, that's great.
Yeah, and then just talking about moving fast and breaking things, right? Because this has been kind of, I would call it a little bit of an anti-pattern that has been hammered into our heads, that you just throw anything on the wall, build an MVP, move fast. But I mean, if you want to build an infrastructure that's going to secure billions and trillions in value and build cross-chain infrastructure, bridges, etc., you have to move thoughtfully. You cannot afford to just move fast, duct tape, throw something out there, and just see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting contrast. Web3 to Web2, the pendulum has sort of swung the other way, and I think this is going to be how we continue to raise the bar and provide a more stable, reliable world for everyone else to build on.
Awesome. All right, talking about SmartCon. So many talks, so many interesting sessions happening. What are some sessions that are on top of your mind?
Yeah, I'm always interested in the developer tools. So I think Spacetime has this proof of SQL that I think is really interesting in terms of, everybody already has databases deployed. So I think, providing that easy layer of verifiable computation just by introducing proof of SQL into databases would be really amazing. I'm also excited for Giannis from DDAW. He's going to be giving a talk. They always make really cool security tools, which I'm excited for. Yeah, definitely the developer tools kind of section. But in general, I'm very heads down. I already know a lot of the announcements that we're going to be making here, so I'm not super excited about those. The thing that I get really pumped up about is kind of just seeing all the different use cases here, seeing the ways that people use Chainlink. This is one of the things I'm particularly proud of, is just that there's so many interesting problems solved in the blockchain space, but that we get to be one of the projects that has real use cases, real adoption, and are getting real world traction is huge. So for that, the banking stuff is obviously huge. I think banking has been sort of a white whale that the blockchain industry has been chasing for a while, and I'm very proud to be a project that's driving that adoption and getting banks to be using blockchain. So ANZ and Swift, I think they have some talks here. Let's see. There is the Truflation one. I think inflation, obviously a huge problem. The agencies measuring it. It's a cool idea to have a credible incredibly neutral sort of third party using objective data to measure that, because I think so many people are concerned about it, and there could be conflicts of interest there. And then there's the climate finance talk, and I think that is a really interesting place for blockchain. It's essentially, it's like a classic tragedy of the commons problem, and so I think blockchains are really good at solving incentive problems, and so I think it's a good place to sort of apply blockchains. I think there's a lot of potential. How about you?
Yeah, there are some really cool build partner talks. Really excited to see Krypton Labs do a demo of their front-running free project and protocol that they're building on with Chainlink, and how to do safe trading. ChainML, obviously AI being so hot these days, and their whole concept of decentralization. And I do have a question for you there as well. And then Ernesto, who's been a great partner from BGT Labs. He'll talk about how to use different Chainlink services in use cases, multi-services use cases, etc. as well.
Cool.
Cool. So we had the Hacker House going for the last few days. I ended up chatting with a few of the developers. So many fresh blood, new developers coming, building their first Hello World app. It's always energizing to see. What is your advice for some of the builders and developers who are just getting started?
Yeah, I think in Web3 it's important you should be trying to drive the trend. You know, the space moves so quickly. The only way that you're going to stay at the forefront of it is to actually be the one kind of pushing the new frontiers. So it's like, how do you actually do that? I would say look at the tools that have been introduced that enable new use cases that the last wave was not, that they didn't have available to them. So for instance, our low latency oracles. I think that being able to have high-speed trading is going to introduce so many new use cases for options, derivatives, all kinds of financial constructs. I mentioned functions. I think functions just introduces an endless possibility of sort of build your own oracle, retrieve any data that you want. And of course, cross-chain stuff I think is really useful. So I would say just figure out what that stuff has, like what new capabilities that introduces for you. And then, like, what does that unlock, and then look at what it does not unlock, and then go try to solve that problem and say, okay, this would be really cool. We want this, but find some special trick, whether it's like a user experience trick or engineering or some kind of financial construct. Find some way to sort of push what is possible and do that, and that will be your sort of moat, your way of unlocking and getting new users that some other competitor doesn't already have. And so I think that's really the way to do it. And then for the developers, I guess, like once you find product market fit, I would say just test. It's a little bit of a running joke on the team that I prefer to over test. I stand by it. I love test-driven development. I think essentially, like it's a good way to dog food your own APIs, understand what you're going to give to other developers, what they're going to use, and then I think also just we're not going to build the future of finance or the future of gaming, future of art, whatever the industry is that you care about. If we build this in some shoddy way, and so I think it's just a good way to like make sure that this stuff is going to be stable, reliable, other people are going to want to use it. So your security reviewers will thank you. Get security reviews. Your users will thank you. I would say just lots of testing, and then I guess if I get off my testing soapbox, just come talk to us. We want to hear from you, help you out. We'd love to. So come tell us about your cool new use case.
Yeah, awesome. Reminds me of what Patrick Collins was saying yesterday at the Hacker House. I'm paraphrasing, but what he said was pretty interesting, which is like if your DApp is going to reach, let's say, $1 billion in the next 1 year, or TBL secured on it, you need to start thinking about security today, because you need to have those security best practices ingrained in you today. You need to have that kind of a mental model to be successful and to ensure all the user funds are secure when it becomes big. So I'd leave us with that. Okay, I'm going to now kind of take a step back and ask one of those abstract, vision-y kind of questions. So stay with me on this one. So if you want to create, like, how do you create an accountable world, more accountable world, with this concept of a verifiable web?
Yeah, that's a big one. It's tough. I think misinformation is such a huge problem in the world. I think, it's strange to me that essentially fake news has become old news, and culturally we're just used to it. Everybody we're not even trying to fight it anymore. We've moved on. Now I think people are getting medical advice from ChatGPT, which is just a bot that is like hallucinating answers. I heard this other thing about how now Quora is asking ChatGPT if it doesn't have an answer, and then Google will find the Quora answers and sort of bubble them up to be the highlighted search result. I read that online, and now that I mention it, it's funny because I don't even know if it's true or not. I just it sort of speaks to how rampant the problem of misinformation in technology is. And I think the answer is simple. It's a lot of work, but it's just use more blockchains, use Chainlink. I think these are the tools these are tools for accountability and verifiability. I think the blockchain adds a layer of accountability to any piece of technology. It's a really good complement to the internet. The internet is it's great at sharing tons of information, not very good at verifying any of that information. And so the blockchain sort of inversely is not very good at handling lots of information. It's pretty slow and expensive, but it's very good at verifying and checking all that information. And so I think they're very good complements, and they can work together really well to kind of fight this rampant misinformation problem. I think of accountability, there's sort of two levels of it in blockchains, where you can either have verifiability, which is just basic tracing and understanding where it's very public, where stuff has come through, who took which actions. But then there's also sort of the bigger layer of enforceability, and so there's smart contracts that can make sure only the right actions happen, or can only be taken by the right people. And as you build these applications, you can kind of mix in however much of either one of these you want with the blockchain, and add that to any existing layer of technology. I also think those two pieces I want to call out, totally, you can have privacy with those, they're totally compatible. Whether it's the tracing, you can still have pseudonyms and selectively disclose whatever you want, or enforceability, you don't even need to disclose anything, you can just sort of have, it just is enforced that only the right people can take the right actions. So I think that's going to be really huge, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of work to get more. There's still a long way to go to get more blockchain adoption, but mixing that into more and more applications, I think will help make a much more verifiable, accountable world.
So let me kind of double click on that a little bit. So, just to recap, you spoke about, leveraging blockchains and decentralization to enable more accountability, verifiability. But why not just use open source? Because if you open source your code, your application, you kind of are able to gain more transparency, more collaboration, no?
Yeah, I think open source is a great first step in terms of making it visible to other people. But you can see this in open source. I think even in academia, it's people publish all the time, but it's getting that verification, getting other people to check that's really the difficult problem. And so blockchains provide an incentive layer to get other people to go verify and check this stuff. And I think that's the really big step of saying, not just can you check it, but are people checking it? And that's what we really need to introduce, is make sure that this stuff is checked.
Makes sense. Cool. So I know we have kind of run out of time. Always great chatting with you.
Great chatting.
Yeah.
See you on the ping pong table.
Next time, yeah.
All right.
And next time we need to do this longer.
Cool.
So we'll be at the Chainlink booth for folks who are here in the audience, and Steve will be there hanging out with us for a little bit as well. So if you have any more questions, do drop by. We have a very cool Flappy Bird game. We have some other cool stuff going on. So yeah, everybody hopefully enjoy the conference, and that'll be all for now. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.